Chapter 2, Lesson 1, Solving Equations with Rational Coefficients. This is going to be a pretty long one, but it covers a lot of things that are going to set us up real nice for the rest of this chapter. Two of the vocab words you're going to need to know: multiplicative inverse and coefficient. These should definitely go in your notes. The multiplicative inverse, two fractions that multiply to produce 1, and coefficient is the numerical value of a variable. So here you can see that 3 is the coefficient and x is variable. Again, remember that variables change. They're not always one thing. Let's look at some examples here of multiplicative inverses. 3/2 and 2/3 is definitely an example, whereas a half and a negative half are not examples. If I multiplied 3/2 and 2/3, I would get 1. If I multiplied a half and a negative half, I would not. I would get negative 1/4 instead. Let's try this one. We'll go through it together. 1/3 x equals 15. First thing I need to do is multiply each side by that multiplicative inverse. So I'm going to multiply it by 3/1 to each side here. Here's some work on how I did it. You can see I took the 15/1. I made it a fraction so it'd be easier, and I multiplied that by 3/1, which gave me 45/1, which of course is just 45. Over here on this side, I know that 1 times 3 and 1 times 3 is going to give me 1, and we don't need to write 1x, so I just have x. I'm left with x equals 45. I plug it back in to do a quick check, and I say 1/3 times 45 gives me 15. And in this case it does, so I know it works. Go ahead and try these 4. Hit pause. We'll break down this one first. I multiplied each side by its multiplicative inverse. So the multiplicative inverse of 4/9 is 9/4. Multiply each side. On the side here, you'll see my work. I took 10/1 times 9/4. I got 90/4, which I then reduce and get 22.5. Over here I was left with 1x, so I just write x, and I get x equals 22.5, or 22.5. Next one, here was a little bit trickier because I took the 1 1/4. I didn't like the way that looked, so I just put it temporarily as an improper fraction. Now I've got 5/4 x equals 6. Multiply each side by 4/5. You can see my work right here. And I'm left, when I get done, with x equals 4 4/5. The third one, here the x is on the other side, the variable is. Doesn't make a difference, I still do the problem the same way. I multiply each side by 5/2, which is the multiplicative inverse of 2/5. You can see my work right over here. And I'm left with 100 equals x. 3 1/8 x equals 4 1/5, so I worked it out up here. I changed it again into an improper fraction. I got 25/8 x equals 21/5. The multiplicative inverse is 8/25. So when I multiply this side, I get just 1x. And when I multiply this side, you can see my work here. I get 1 43/125. When solving equations that have decimal coefficients instead of fractional coefficients, we just divide each side by the coefficient. Here's where I hope your long dividing skills are still very, very sharp. If we had something like 0.5x equals 100, I would divide each side by 0.5. I'm left with x equals 200. I know that there are 200 halves that go into 100. And again, that's what division is. Now you try. Go ahead and hit pause and try these two. For the one on the left, I take each side and I divide it by 3.75. I'll do a quick recap on how we divide here. 3.75 and 12 First thing I need to do, move this over twice, which gives me 2 zeros there. I'll extend this bar a little bit further. And I'm going to go ahead and guess 3 right here. 3 times 5 is 15. 21, 22, 11. I know here I'm left with 75. Add my decimal, write it up so that I keep my placeholders in line. Add a 0. Bring it down. Make sure to cross off those so I don't get confused for next time. And now 375 goes into 750. I bet that's going to be twice. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 7, 14. Plus 1, 15. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Alright, looks like it comes out evenly to 3.2. Which means 3.2 equals x. Now let's look over at the other one. 2.25x equals 55. Divide each side by 2.25. I'll do that as well. 55 divided by 2.25. Again, I move the decimal twice, which means I add 2 zeros, extend my bar. 225 goes into 550 twice. Right here I'm going to get 5 times 2, 10, carry the 1, 4, 5, 4. Looks like I'm left with 100 here, and drop the 0. 225 goes into 1,000 4 times, I bet. 4 times 5, 20, carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Looks like I'm left with a 100 again, which I'll add my decimal, write it up, add my 0, bring it down. I can see this is going to keep happening, because if I go 4 again here, get 20, carry the 2, 8, 9, 10, carry the 1, 8, 9. It's going to keep happening. I'm going to get 100 over and over and over and over. So I can see it's just going to repeat. 24.4 repeating, which means that's what I write for x. A few more to try. Go ahead and hit pause. I'm not going to break all of these down for you, but you can see that 6/7 x equals 36 means x equals 42. Then we've got negative 0.375 and a negative 6.6 repeating. One last problem. Write an equation for this scenario. 1/4 of the pizza sold at the 8th grade dance is pepperoni. Last year they sold 60 pepperoni pizzas. How many total pizzas were there? And again, I'm looking for an equation. If you'd like to solve it, go right ahead though. Hit pause. I take 1/4 times the total number of pizzas, which I don't know, so I'm going to make that an x, that's my variable, and I know that it's going to equal my 60 pepperoni pizzas. I can now multiply each side by the multiplicative inverse. I take 1/4 times 4 over 1, and I take 60 times 4 over 1, and I get 240 total pizzas. Hooray, you made it to the end. That was Chapter 2, Lesson 1.